Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Just a little bit here.
Damn it. Do you ever get like a little bitty hair? I think it's cat fur stuck to your microphone. Your little
that's
windscreen thingy.
That has
I
been.
was about to go cross-eyed looking at it.
Well, you're stealing my trademark.
Oh,
That was my claim to fame for years, man. Because
really?
I've always had a dog, and so anytime I was out in the field, and for a while, I felt like I usually have light-haired colored dogs. So I'd go up to politicians. I'd have like fuzz all over my microphone. That was my thing.
And your shirt.
And my shirt.
And your shirt.
Here comes the fuzzy Mike reporter.
I can relate to that so hard. I think I got it. It's driving me nuts. I don't know if you guys can see it out there, but
no, actually, when you do that and you can't see what you're doing, and like if there's a bug and you can't see it, people think that you're just going a little nuts. That's all.
Then the bug flies into your mouth.
That's right. And then they do a remix and you become famous. You go viral.
That's right. All right. Well, I want to talk about Assange.
Okay.
Yeah, this is such a story. And it's so complicated. It's going to take me a few minutes, so I'll buy you some time, Rick. If you've been following the Assange case, you know how complex it is. Going back to the days that he was at the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and he stayed for 7 years, essentially living in a room the size of a closet. Never saw the sun, never went outside, but he was allowed to have visitors. And of course, his legal team came to visit him often to strategize about various matters they were involved in. He had lots of friends, journalists mostly, who would come and visit. Many of them were Americans. And when you came to visit Julian at the embassy, the first thing you had to do when you checked in with the secretary outside was you were required to surrender all of your electronic devices, your laptop, your phone, your watch, your Apple Watch, whatever. And they would hold it for you at the desk for safekeeping because they claimed it was a security measure. Well, turns out there was a Spanish company called, I think it's UC Global, that was hired by the Ecuadorian embassy to do security. And they installed surveillance cameras with sound in every room of the embassy, including Julian's private quarters, including the women's bathroom. And basically, they had footage of what Assange was doing day and night, every single day. This went on for years. Every visitor that he had was recorded. The lawsuit that's now been filed against the CIA and Mike Pompeo personally alleges, and I've heard from several of these journalists who I personally know, so I know it's true, these devices that they handed over at the front desk were copied. They were imaged and sent to UC Global, which was contracting for the CIA. So then they sent copies of the phones and devices of every visitor Julian had, including his lawyers, for years directly to the CIA. Also, they have footage of people like, Pamela Anderson, the Baywatch babe, who was one of Julian's best friends, came to visit him often. You probably have, images of her using the bathroom. They have images of his wife, Stella, coming in with their infant children coming to visit. It gets even darker and more sinister than that, folks. But anyway, the American citizens who visited Julian, the American lawyers, the American journalists, of course, their Fourth Amendment right to privacy was violated by all of this. And they're suing. They're suing now. And it's beautiful that they're doing this. I know it's a long shot, but we've got an interview here with two of Assange's lawyers. And it's really important. I want you guys to hear what they had to say. Let's roll this.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The CIA and former CIA Director Mike Pompeo were sued Monday for spying on U.S. lawyers and journalists who met with Julian Assange while he was living in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he had political asylum. The lawsuit is being filed as Britain prepares to extradite the WikiLeaks founder to the United States, where he faces up to 175 years in prison for violating the Espionage Act by publishing classified documents exposing U.S. war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan. Assange spent nearly 7 years inside the embassy from 2012 till April 2019, when Metropolitan Police entered the embassy, arrested him after Ecuador revoked his political asylum. The lawsuit filed Monday accuses the Spanish security firm UC Global of spying on Assange and his visitors inside the embassy on behalf of the CIA. UC Global and the company's director, David Morales, are also named as defendants in the new lawsuit, which comes less than a year after Yahoo News revealed the CIA considered abducting and possibly assassinating Assange while he was in the embassy. On Monday, several plaintiffs in the lawsuit spoke during an online news conference. This is Deborah Herbeck. She's a media lawyer who visited Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy in London several times to discuss sensitive legal matters.
On arrival, there was a strict protocol for the protection of Julian, we were told. Passports, mobile phones, cameras, laptops, recording devices, and other electronic equipment were turned over to the security guards in the lobby. We learned much later, through a criminal investigation under the supervision of a court in Spain, that while visitors like me were meeting with Julian in the embassy conference room, the guards next door were taking apart our phones, removing and photographing SIM cards, and we believe downloading data from our electronic equipment. Their boss, David Morales from UC Global, who appears to have been recruited by the CIA through associates of Sheldon Adelson during a visit to a tech conference, was making regular trips to Washington, D.C., to New York, to Las Vegas, reportedly to hand over thumb drives and to receive further instructions from his U.S. government handlers. In other words, during our meetings with Julian at the embassy, recordings of our confidential conversations and the contents of our electronic devices were being delivered into the hands of the United States government. I'm a New York lawyer. I have the right to assume that the US government is not listening to my private and privileged conversations with my clients, and that information about other clients and cases I may have on my phone or laptop are secure from illegal government intrusion. This is not just a violation of our constitutional rights. This is an outrage.
That's, again, the attorney, Deborah Herbeck, who is a plaintiff in the new lawsuit against the CIA and the former CIA director, Mike Pompeo, for spying on her and other visitors when they met with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. We're joined now by Richard Roth, the lead attorney who filed the lawsuit on Monday. Lay out the case, Richard.
Hi, Amy. Thank you for having me. So the case is very simple and very troubling. Essentially, there are these individuals who work at the embassy who are just there to essentially monitor the traffic that comes in. What we learned was that through a Spanish court proceeding, we learned that, in fact, UC Global went to a convention and presented at a convention where Sheldon Adelson, as Deborah Herbeck said, essentially introduced them to, brought them in to the wings of the CIA to not only just monitor who comes to visit Julian Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy, but to actually take their phones, their cell phone, their laptops, any kind of recording devices, and to image them while they were inside, because when they walked in, they had to leave them with the security company. We also learned that they were streaming, that they actually had streaming microphones and cameras inside the embassy for meetings with Julian Assange. We learned this in the Spanish court proceeding, and there are witnesses who essentially were employees at UC Global thinking that they were just doing their job and learning from Morales that all of this was going back to, quote, American intelligence. It was going back to the Americans. It was going back to the dark side. And these individuals came forward and told essentially the Spanish court and others that they did not understand at the time that they were part of this enterprise that tape recorded everything that Julian Assange did. And what's very troubling about it is not only is it a violation of the Fourth Amendment, your right to privacy, but you have lawyers, you have journalists, you have doctors who went to visit Julian Assange. And if doctors went in, there's a doctor-patient privilege, there's an attorney-client privilege. And so not only did they literally listen in on the conversations, but any client of, for example, Deborah Urbex, who had information on her laptop, not even Assange's, was the U.S. government now has privy to. So it's very troubling. Deborah's comment that it's an outrage is square on point.